Hello everyone, welcome to Code Pravah. I hope you will be doing very well. So today we are going to discuss and learn a very commonly asked front-end interview problem, that is typewriter. As you can see, these days the AI chats are being very popular and the way they respond are very impressive, but one thing as a front-end developer you should notice that the typing effect is very awesome. For example, I am on DeepSeek website, and if I ask how is the weather today, so you can see the typing effect is going on. It is not giving you all the response at the same time. Instead, it is typing character by character. So this is a beautiful example of typewriter. Most of the chat applications which are powered by AI, they are performing these type of mechanism. Either it's ChatGPT or Google Gemini or DeepSeek. So we are going to learn that how to generate these type of effects. So I'm in my code sandbox and I have some small code here which I'm not going to write from very scratch. As you can see my UI, there is a text that is typewriter and there is a button, and on the click of button one function is running. What this function is doing? It is an asynchronous function which is using Axios with the method of get to fetch the response from an API, and I have used one mock API. As you can see, the response is coming like this, and I am using the body part of this API. So what I'm doing, I am collecting the response and I am extracting the body from this response, and I am setting this body into this data state. And what I am doing, I am rendering this data into a paragraph tag. So if I click on this get data button, this function will be triggered and the data will be populated with actual data from the API. So let's see how it is working. So I clicked on get data and you can see the data is rendering here. But wait, this is not what we wanted. We want to make it into a typewriter effect, as we saw in the case of DeepSeek. So I hope you understand the problem statement. Let's work on it. So I will create one folder into my source directory that I'll call as components. So inside this components directory, I will create one component and I'll call it as typewriter. Okay, so I'm going to create this component. So what this typewriter will do, it is going to simply return a div. Inside this div, there will be some data which we will decide. So let's say this component can accept some props with name data, and I'll be just rendering this data here inside this paragraph tag. And I will export this component from this file as a default export. Now I'll go into my app.js and I will import typewriter. And just below the data, now I would like to render my typewriter, and I will pass data as a prop to this typewriter component. So what changed? Nothing. I am just passing the data and I am doing the same. I am rendering the data as it is. So this is the component, that is typewriter, where I will be rendering the data into typewriter type of effect. So what I'm going to do, I'll create one state, let's name it text, and one setter function that is set text, and I will use useState hook from the React library. So initially this text will be an empty string, and instead of this data I am going to render this text. So when I'll be clicking on this button, I'll be getting the text, and currently the text is empty string, so that's why I'm not getting any data. So what we are going to do in the next step, we are going to grab data from the data prop and we will start populating the data into the text state character by character, and then we will be able to visualize how this typewriter effect is taking place. So for that, I will import useEffect hook from the React library, and I'm going to use here just below the useState hook, and this useEffect will be dependent on this data prop. So whenever there will be any change into data prop, this useEffect will be invoking the inner callback. So if there is no any data, I want to simply step out of this function. Then I will declare one variable, that is I, and I will initialize it with 0. This I am going to use it to track the characters of data variable. Now I want to grab each character from data prop or data variable, and I want to append it into the text state. So how can I do that? If I'll use simply for loop, it will take very less time and we will not be able to visualize the actual typewriter effect. So what I'm going to do, I will use set interval function here. And for now, let's say this interval should be taking only 20 millisecond. And in each 20 millisecond, I will be setting the text. Means I am actually populating the data. So how will I do that? I will take the data variable and I will use the slice function, which I can use with a string, and it generally takes start and end. So for the start, I want to grab the data from 0th position or the first character, and I want to grab the characters up to the ith index. When I am done with it, I will increment the I, because when there will be next iteration, one more character will be picked after 20 millisecond. So if I save this and I click on this button, you can see the typewriter effect is taking place, but believe me, this is only the half work we have done so far. So there are a few rules in React that if we are using this interval, which is a web API, and if we are using it into the useEffect hook, we should definitely clear this interval. So in order to clear this set interval, I'm going to store the interval's ID into a variable named interval ID. And when there will be any unmounting of this component, I'm going to simply call clear interval function and I will pass this interval ID. So if there is any unmounting of this component happening, I will be simply clearing this interval. One more thing I would like to do, if at any point I has been greater than data.length, that we have processed all the characters of data, I don't want my interval to be working again and again. So in this scenario also, I'm going to clear my interval using the clear interval function, where I'll be passing interval ID as function parameter. Now our basic typewriter is working, but still we want few cosmetic changes to perform, because when I invoke my typewriter, you see it is writing from the center, which is not giving it a good look. So what we can do, we can go to style.css, and for the paragraph tag, because our text is being written into the paragraph tag, so we can say text align to left side. And now if I refresh it and when I click on this button, you can see now the text is being generated from left to right, which is, we can say, a better choice than the previous one. One more thing I would like to add, that I want a cursor here. So whenever the text is being written, a cursor should be blinking and growing along the content. So I'm going to add one more component and I will name it as cursor itself. So let me quickly create one component for cursor. I will name it cursor. It's not going to accept any prop, and simply I'm going to return a span from here, and I'm going to give it a class name, let's say blinking cursor. And by default, I'm going to export this component from this cursor.js file. In the next step, I'm going to import this cursor and I'm going to use it, and I want this cursor to be inline. So what I can do, inside this paragraph tag, I can add a span tag, and inside this span I can render my text, and after that text I will render my cursor. So now let's work on this cursor. My cursor component is ready. I have to just add few CSS for it. So I'll go into my style.css. I have copied the class name, which I am going to put it here, and I'm just going to set a border into the right side, which will be giving a cursor effect for me. So I'll say border right. Let's make it 5 pixel, and I want a solid color of black only. So you can see a little bit of cursor effect is happening here. I want a little bit of padding from right side because it's sticking into the text. So I'll say padding right, maybe 5 pixels again. Yep, it is better. And I want to create one animation which will give it a blinking effect. So I'll create one keyframe. Let's name it blink. So what I want in my blink keyframe, I want to change the opacity from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. So I'll say at 50% of time span, let's change it opacity to 0 because initially it will be 1. And let's add this animation here. The name of animation is blink, which I have already added, and I want it for 1 second. I want step start. What step start does, it's not going to show you a fade animation. Instead, it will be a direct change into the animation, which will be giving it a real typewriter effect. So let's try this. Step start, and I want this effect to be infinite. So let's save it. You can see it's going away and it's coming back. If I don't add step start here, so you can see there is a fade animation, which is change in opacity can be seen here, which is gradually increasing and decreasing, which is not making a cursor very realistic. So what I'll do, I will change back to step start, which is instantly changing the opacity, which is making it more realistic for me at least. So we are done with the CSS. There is no more CSS we are going to do. Few enhancement which we are going to do, but before that, let's try to run it again. So as you can see here, the cursor is blinking again and again, and I have not clicked on this button. It means as a user, I have not requested for data even if it is blinking. So let's fix this first. I will go into my app.js file and I will create one more state here. I'll say, let's give it a very generic name. Let's say is writing data. It means is your typewriter writing data or not? And same a setter function for this, that set is writing data. And initially it will be false because we are not writing any data at all when the user is idle or when the user is not clicking on the button. But when the user is clicking on this button, that is the actual time when we can say the actual data writing is going to take place. So inside this get data function, we will set this is writing data as true. Now because this cursor is being actually used into the typewriter component, so I need to pass this state into typewriter component in order to make it working. So I am going to pass this state to my typewriter component. So now I am sending these two props from here. Let's grab those props here into the typewriter component. I'll say is writing data and set is writing data. So first thing first, I will say is writing data. Then I want to use this cursor. Means whenever the user has requested for data writing or data, only then I am going to render this cursor. So you can see there is no any more blinking happening. When the user is going to click on get data, then there is a blink and it's following the text. As the text is growing, the cursor is following it, and at the last it's blinking again. But one more problem, I don't want it to be blinking when the data writing has been completed. So simply here is the place where I can set my is writing data state to be false, because here is the place where I know that we have completed the writing piece. So let's reload this page and I'm going to request for data. It's blinking, fetching the data from API. Now it's writing. You can see the cursor and the data writing has been completed. So there is no more cursor blinking. Let's see it again. It's working fine. So we can say we are done with the typewriter. We have achieved whatever we wanted, and I hope you learned something new from this video. If you really enjoyed this video and learned something new, please give a like to this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe Code Pravah. Thanks for watching.